What's going on, everybody? Ed0626, and today I'm talking about something that I've been meaning to for a really long time, but it's just come down to the fact that other video topics get in the way of what I want to talk of this topic that I want to talk about. And I finally got the chance to put this video together and upload it, and it's a bit of a continuation of well, as you can see, the gameplay is a bit of a continuation of the For Honor Vikings storyline that I have, which actually comes into handy because the reason I actually, the whole reason I'm actually using this gameplay is because, and the whole reason that this video spawned is because Vikings is in its last season, I think. And for some reason, and I don't know what it is, but they haven't released it yet. I feel like it's been almost a year since the first half of the, I think it's the 6th season now. It's been underway. So they usually do like the whole mid-season bullshit, and they start up the next half of the season, however many episodes that is. Well, now they're in like their last 8 to 10 episodes, and I don't know when this part of the season is going to come out, but in all honesty, Vikings has probably been, to me, one of my favorite shows to watch on television. Yes, there's the issue of, oh, is this actually historically accurate, blah blah blah, that sort of deal. And I get that argument, I really do. I wish there are some parts of the show that would have been historically accurate as well, but when you disregard all of that, the show has more or less been very entertaining to watch, even though there's the issue of, there was always that issue of what's the show going to be like once the character of Ragnar Lothbrok got killed. Spoiler alert, sorry, it's been around for a couple of years now, so if you're planning to watch the show, too little too late. But yeah, Ragnar dies, and that, for me is like, oh shit, how's this show gonna go now? Like, what's the direction this show's gonna take? And I think they did a pretty solid job after the fact, but I feel like there can always be some narratives that are told better, and that's just how it is. It's a great show. I'm sad to see it go, but when it eventually goes, I know it has given me some fantastic memories in television history. And I don't know if you guys can tell, I watch a whole shit ton of TV. Like, I watch a lot of fucking television, mostly because I have nothing else better to do. And I'm not a fan of shows. I prefer standard TV. I'm not a fan of shows or stuff like Netflix binge watching or Hulu or Amazon Prime, any of those types of things. I have WWE Network, and I have Disney Plus only because I want to watch the Star Wars movies and the Clone Wars shows and all that stuff. That's the only reason I have that. So that's just me. But here are a couple other shows that I know that I loved that have either been canceled or they had a fitting ending and so on. So here's one show, Ballers, which was on HBO. I loved Ballers. It had its dull moments, for lack of better terms, but Ballers was still a pretty solid show, and it kind of gave you some sort of idea as to what, players do, or NFL players and companies that, manage these players do in the off season and so on, which the whole show, or most of the show for a good portion of time, took place in like Miami or LA or stuff like that. It had The Rock in it, and it was a great show. Tackled a lot of issues. They talked about the whole bullshit with, the Kaepernick stuff. And whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter to me. I don't have a stance on it, and I choose not to take a stance on it in this video. They covered that. They covered the whole concussion thing. They covered the whole NFL players NFL not taking care of older players because of the concussions and so on, which was a thing they tackled in the last season, which ended very well. There's also a lot of stories of redemption in there and so on. It's pretty cool. It was a pretty good show. Black Sails, which was like I think I talked about it on the channel before, but Black Sails is more or less a pirate show. What type of stuff's going on in the Bahamas and all that sort of deal, and Nassau, and it tackles stuff like the politics of everything. It's not a typical pirate show that you would come to know, if that makes any way, sense, or form. So it's not a typical pirate show. There was a lot more depth to it. Yeah, there's still, talks of trying to get gold and stuff like that. Yeah, and then, there's a couple of nudity scenes and sex scenes, as I would expect for people, or at least people of that time and of that nature. I think when the show was first coming out, the producers that they were interviewing on Stars were like, they're all very, free-spirited and so on. So I'm like, yeah, everybody's fucking everyone all over the place. But it was a good show. I enjoyed it a lot. And again, it was one of those shows that I think had probably one of the most fitting endings of all the shows I watch of that caliber of like Stars, HBO, Showtime, etc. Spartacus, another Stars show. Now, I actually caught Spartacus in the tail end of its season, or the last season, I should say, of its series. And I didn't watch the whole series until later on, much after War of the Damned, I think the last season was over. And I loved War of the Damned. It was a great season, and again, I had no idea what had gone on beforehand until after the fact, but once I actually watched the whole series in its entirety, everything made sense to me. And I still think it's one, as cheesy as some of the effects of the show are, with, the green screen and some of the, what is it called? Some of the animation blood effects. That stuff kind of gets cheesy after a while if you think about it, but it was still a very good show, and I enjoyed some of the stories that were told, and something that I don't think is often touched on in history, such as the Spartacus uprising and so on. So that was a cool way to dramatize it. Broken Skull Challenge. Those of you who don't know, Broken Skull Challenge was what the fuck was it? It was like a obstacle course running show that Stone Cold Steve Austin hosted in his his ranch, pretty much. They had like a whole shit ton of obstacles, and they had a big one at the end of the show that if you beat a certain time, someone else's time, you ended up winning money and so on. And I loved that show, and I had no idea that it actually got canceled until I was listening to Stone Cold's podcast, and I was so pissed when that happened. I was not happy at all. I was like, man, that sucks. I really loved that show. I think Stone Cold didn't really enjoy doing that show. I think it was a lot of, it was very minimal. I think he said it was like something like minimal effort to produce and put together, that's cool. So, Dragon Ball Super. Now, I'm an anime fan. I'm a Dragon Ball fan. I love all forms of Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Super is probably one of my lesser favorites, just because of some of the stuff. Oh, God. I still can't get over that Goku Black arc. That bothered the ever-living shit out of me at the end. But overall, Dragon Ball Super was a very solid show. I very much enjoyed it. And for now, it's not renewing its season. For those of you who don't know, the manga, or the book that the show is based on, is still going on with the, I think it's the Moro arc. And there's a lot of crazy shit going on in that. Of course, we recently had the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, which to me is probably one of the best anime movies I've seen for Dragon Ball. If not it's probably my favorite Dragon Ball film, in all honesty. And I hope they renew the series eventually. I don't know when that's going to be. It may not be for years to come, but maybe they're keeping it a secret or under wraps, and who knows what will happen. But hey, a man can hope, as for now, we have no new Dragon Ball content to enjoy. Now, here's a show that I heard good things about, but I never actually watched, and that was Game of Thrones. And people were upset to see Game of Thrones go, but I think with how the final season ended off, I think probably a lot of people were glad that it was over, because apparently the final season was just so butchered that it was just bad, and it was very unwatchable in certain parts, and things didn't make sense. And I think all that goodwill that the show built up, because even though I have never watched the show, I've seen bits and pieces of some things because my brother was binge watching it, and he showed me a couple of things. I'm like, wow, this show is actually pretty cool. I just never got to watching it with him. But yeah. But I think all that goodwill that those seasons built up until the last season just like died, pretty much. Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I mentioned it before. A fantastic animated Star Wars show. By far some of the best Star Wars content you'll ever watch. Period, bar none. It was just so good, especially in the later seasons. It just got so good. It took on a lot of mature themes, and it was so much fun to watch. And that final season, man, I binged watched that all in one night. I must have cried like 3 times. Once because it was over. Second time was because, one because it was over. The first time I cried was when the Echo whole stuff happened. I loved the whole thing of the whole arc of the Domino Squad, and to see Echo actually survive, and they actually kept that storyline from the unfinished episodes long ago, I was very happy about. Hell on Wheels, a show that AMC made. Hell on Wheels kind of focused on after the Civil War and the expansion out west, and it was a very good show. I enjoyed it a lot. It's one of those shows, again, one of those few shows that I watched that had a proper ending to it. And I'm really glad it did have a proper ending to it, because it was a very solid show. I don't think a lot of people focus on that time period of the Old West and the whole building of the railroads and all that stuff. It was just such a cool concept of a show. And I'm glad that had a fitting end when that happened. Mid-2010s that it ended, I think. I don't really quite remember the exact year the show ended, but all I remember, it was a very good show, and it introduced me to a lot of great actors that I still follow to this day. Cops and Live PD, I think this show was taken off, obviously, for political reasons, again, with the climate in the United States. I won't comment on it, although I don't really fully understand why they would take shows like this off when a lot of the time it showed, the lighter side of the police force and so on. That's just me. That didn't make any sense to me. And finally, The Walking Dead. Now, obviously, The Walking Dead has not actually concluded yet, but it's a show that I can't really see going on for much longer. Season 10 has offered, I think this is Season 10, has offered a lot of things that have made me happy, a lot of things that have made me sad, but I just can't see this show going forward another 2 or 3 years. It has to end eventually, especially since the graphic comic has ended, so I don't see it ending anytime soon. I don't know about you guys. Or I see it ending very soon, I should say. But with that being said, that's my take on when some of my favorite shows, or shows that I know of, got canceled, and canceled or concluded, and it's kind of left me with less and less TV to watch, to be honest with you, because a lot of the stuff that's out today I'm just not into. Anyway, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.